everybody. Good morning. This is your host, Jordan Tremaine, and welcome to the Perspective Podcast, where we explore new thoughts, connect ideas, and offer perspectives that may change the way you think about a thing or two. And today, we're going to talk about how healing sucks. All right, guys. Hello. I hope you are having a day. I don't know what kind of day, but I hope you're having one. And glad to be here with you guys. In case you didn't know, I really enjoy sharing ideas and having conversations and learning new things. Very often, I don't like to subscribe to this idea that somebody's right and somebody's wrong in a conversation. I more typically fall along the lines of let's work together and come up with something interesting. And that's one of the main reasons I do this podcast. So I hope that these ideas are interesting. I hope that they spark a conversation for you. They get you thinking. And if you have questions about them, I am all ears. If you want to contact me through my Instagram at @JordanTremaine_, or if you go to anchor.fm online and look up the Perspective Podcast, you can leave messages for different episodes there. So if you wanted to talk to me, go for it. I'd love to talk to you. And if this becomes a conversation for you somewhere else, then I think I've done my job. So we're going to get into today's idea. And today's idea is that healing sucks. And I just think that sometimes there are things that we don't say out loud. And not that they're hard to figure out, but sometimes when nobody says them out loud, maybe it doesn't seem real, or maybe it makes us feel like our situation is unique and therefore we're isolated and we can't relate to anybody else. And I think in the realm of healing, in my experience at least, it's always been a not fun exercise. And I wanted to kind of share some of my thoughts on it. And hopefully it helps some people to have better healing processes, to go through healing processes, and maybe to be patient with other people or supportive while they're doing their thing. Because I think healing is something that takes time. It's, like I said in the Thought Soup episode, it's like a crock pot meal or something you have to marinate, or something that has to simmer. Like, you can't rush healing. If you rush healing, it's like when you're baking a cake and it takes 60 minutes at 350 degrees, but you're like, oh, let me rush this. Let me turn the temperature up and then I can cook it for less time, right? It's like, no, you're just going to burn everything and you're going to have to start over. So I'd say take your time with your healing. If you're going to go through it, I applaud you for even trying, even considering it, because healing is tough. And be patient with yourself. So on to today's idea. When I think about it, almost every form of healing is just not any fun. I'm going to explain the form of healing that I think we're most familiar with first and kind of use that as an anchor for the rest of this talk, and that's physical healing. I think when we can see an injury, it's more realistic or more concrete to us that it needs to be healed and we need to take steps to heal it, and we might even need to go to therapy. But if you break an arm or you get sick or you cut yourself, you're probably going to feel some pain and some discomfort, and you might lose the ability to do some things. Like if you break your leg, you might lose the ability to walk. Or you break your hand, you might lose the ability to write while your hand is broken, while you're injured. And I think it is fairly common for most people to seek help when they are physically injured and to try and take some steps to get back to where they were before they were injured. I know there are certain cases where you don't have access to proper medical care, you don't have insurance that can pay for something, or you don't have the means to acquire something. Even if it's available, you may not be able to afford it. Or there's other cases where sometimes you're not aware that you're injured. And there's cases why you wouldn't seek medical help, but I think in most situations when you're aware of what's going on and the care is available to you, you take it. And to go a step further, when we're talking about physical injuries, the people around you that can notice what's going on with you, they typically encourage you and try to help you get the medical attention or the help, the supplies that you need in order to get back healthy. And it's almost like, yo, are you aware that your leg is broken? Are you aware that you're bleeding out of your ears? Like, maybe you should get that checked out. Maybe you should go to the hospital. And it's like a normal thing with physical, usually visible injuries that we encourage each other to have health and to heal and to take care of ourselves. And to dig into the healing process a little bit more, let's take like a broken leg, for example. If you break your leg and you don't do anything about it, you're like, oh, it'll heal on its own. I don't have to worry about it. Or I'm not going to the doctor. I can't afford it. Whatever reason that you don't try to dig into it and figure out what's going on and take care of it, quote unquote, the right way, if there even is a right way. But if you kind of just, let things be, there's a chance that broken bone can heal wrong. And you still have to go through this healing process. You still have to be immobile, usually while the bone is healing up. It's usually painful. And there's a lot of stuff you have to go through this healing process. But if you don't get help, or if you don't do it the way that you know is best, or you get help and find an expert that shows you a good way to heal, you can heal incorrectly. And I think to some extent this is called self-medication. When you decide that you're the doctor, when you don't have a license or a white coat or like all the stuff the doctors have, and you're like, I know what's best for me, I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to heal, or this makes me feel better, so this is what I'm going to do for my therapy and stuff like that. It can lead you down a road where your leg ends up healing in a way that you still have to limp, or it still hurts, or it never fully heals, or it gets infected or something like that because you didn't go through like a proper healing regimen or a proper therapy regimen. And it could haunt you for the rest of your life. And then if you ever decide to, do it right in the future, you're going to have to go and like get your leg broken again, so that it can be set right and heal right and go through the healing process. You're going to have to go through a lot of pain over again because you self-medicated instead of doing the correct thing. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on people for self-medicating. I think you could look at almost anything as self-medication. You can look at eating or recreational drugs or escapism. There's like so many things you can look at as self-medication. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I would encourage people that if they know they have an actual injury and they know they have access to like proper help, to go and get that proper help. If the self-medication is the best you can do, like if you're stuck up on the mountains and know you can't like do all this like official emergency room stuff because you're not in the emergency room, but you can tie a stick to your leg or stop the bleeding or cauterize or something, do the best you can with what you got. But if you have better, then do better. And that's kind of what I'm talking about in this episode. So that's a little kind of this one idea of what could possibly happen if you got a physical injury like breaking your leg. I think what I'm encouraging, or what I'm trying to bring out, is that like if you break your leg and you go to the doctor and the doctor is like, oh, you need a cast. So they like set your leg, they set the bones in the right orientation. They may need to do a little bit of surgery and put like screws in your legs or different stuff. They may need to rebuild parts of your bone because it may have shattered in weird ways and stuff like that. But like they patch you up and then they put a cast on you, and then you got to be in that cast for like 6-8 weeks or something like that. And during that time, you can't get the cast wet. You can't wash yourself under the cast. It might be itchy. You might have to use crutches so you don't put any pressure on that leg. So your daily life has changed because you have to get around using crutches or a wheelchair or one of those like sweet cast scooter things they got. But you have to go through this process of healing that has specific steps, and you can't skip a step. And then even when the cast comes off, you might have to do some physical therapy and teach your leg how to be a leg again. You might have to learn how to walk again or something like that. And that could be very difficult, and it could take a lot of time and effort, and could be very frustrating. And you might not be able to walk for a year or two. But that doesn't mean you will never be able to walk again if you keep following the instructions that the experts are giving you. And I'm not saying blindly follow the advice of experts or doctors. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that usually when you're injured, there is an established healing process that will help you. And do that healing process. Take that medication, do that therapy, and get yourself back up and running. And don't just limp around for the rest of your life because you didn't want to go through therapy. This sounds very encouraging and like, yeah, if you just did the right thing all the time, your life would be great. And it's like, yeah, duh, thanks, man. Of course, if I do the right thing all the time, my life is great. That's the best advice that never works. And while kind of I am saying that, what I'm trying to focus on right now is I fully realize and accept, and I'm trying to normalize this idea that the healing process is terrible for the person going through it. It's itchy, it hurts, it immobilizes you. You have to augment your daily lifestyle to accommodate like these crutches, or maybe you can't drive to work now because your foot is broken, so you have to get work at home, or you have to have somebody drive you to work or something like that. And that stuff is like annoying and it's not fun. And then going through therapy sucks, and being like, oh, am I ever going to walk again? And having all that pain of doing physical therapy. Sometimes physical therapy could be super painful. And I mean, to give you a small idea, this is like, people go through way, way more painful stuff than this. But I remember I had some shin splints in high school when I was on the track team. And they had these like hot baths and cold baths. And I guess that was like good for shin splints. And this was like a full bath. Like you put your whole body in it. And I had to like get in the cold bath that was like ice cold, and it was a whirlpool. And then you had to like spend like, I don't know, like 5 minutes in there, and then immediately get into hot bath, and it was a whirlpool, and then go back and forth for like a half an hour. And that was like painful and exhausting. Your body doesn't like switching temperatures really quickly. And like when you go from hot water to cold water, it's freezing. And then you go from cold water to hot water and it burns. And not like I was like getting my skin burned off or something, but it was something I remember like, oh my gosh, it's time for therapy. And I go into the, sports trainer's room, and it was like not fun, but like my legs healed. And I was able to get back to sports. And that's what I really wanted to do. And ultimately, there's times where you have to go through some not fun stuff in order to get back to what you want to do, or to just initially get to what you want to do. And the healing process in terms of being physically injured is, I think, very obvious, or more obvious than other ways of being injured and healing. But throughout almost every injury I can imagine, like the healing process, nobody's like, hooray, I get to heal. This is my favorite part of being alive. I love going to chemotherapy. I love going to dialysis. I love going to therapy to learn how to walk again. Like, all of that is not fun. And I don't think anybody like loves doing it. But it's about taking care of yourself and valuing yourself, and doing the work to get yourself to where you need to be. Or where your potential can set you. And the reason I want to bring this up, I know I'm talking a lot about physical injuries and the physical healing process, and how that's often no fun, but it's often very necessary to get you back to where you need to be. The reason I'm bringing this up is I want to use the physical injury as an analogy to other types of injuries. I think there are mental injuries. I think there are emotional injuries. I think there are spiritual injuries. And this depends on how you look at life. You might call one thing another thing, and I'm not here to judge, but I'm just giving you some ideas of different sorts of injuries that a person can get. And I think in common speech, at least in Southern California where I live, we don't call these things mental injuries or emotional injuries. We call stuff like trauma. Or like I had a traumatic experience or something like that. If I said I had it, like if my body incurred trauma, that means I got injured. Like there's a trauma ward in the hospital for people that are physically injured. And if you incurred like emotional trauma or mental trauma, like that's an injury that you incurred and now you're injured. And there's no shame on you. It's no shame to get physically injured. It's no shame to trip and fall or get into a car accident. Like, I'm not saying like you're inadequate or you're dumb or you're anything for getting injured. Most of the time when we get injured, it's something that happens to us or it's an accident, and that's okay. That happens to everybody. I hope it, happens to you less often, or when it does happen, it's not awful, but injuries happen because life happens. But if you do end up with a mental injury or a physical injury or an emotional injury or some other type of injury, whatever is the reason you got that injury, like whatever reason it is that you broke your leg, it doesn't matter if it's your fault or not. It's your responsibility to heal. You're the only one that's going to be able to take ownership for your healing process. And that's the same for your mental and emotional health or your mental and emotional injuries. If you get injured, I'm sorry that happened, but a healing process is necessary to get over that injury. And like I was talking about earlier with the self-medication thing where somebody breaks their leg and they're like, oh, I'm not going to go to the doctor. And then their leg heals wrong. You could get mentally injured or emotionally injured and be like, oh yeah, I'm not going to go to therapy. Oh, I'm not going to talk that out. Oh, I'm not going to dig into that. And then you could heal incorrectly. And I'm not saying you better heal this way, you better heal that way, but you can heal in ways that are problematic to you living a successful life, where if you go to therapy, you have a better chance of understanding what happened and learning and growing from it in a way that helps you interact with the society in a positive way and helps you be successful in your life in terms of where you want to go. And there is, I think, a higher chance if you self-medicate of developing coping mechanisms or reactionary strategies or certain mental patterns and ways of thinking that don't help you in your life. You can heal in a way where now the leg is healed in a broken way. So now you have a limp. You can have a limp in your thinking or a limp in the way you process your emotions. And once you do that, once you have set that in your mind, once the bone has set or the emotion has set, if you ever want to fix that, you might have to go back into therapy or go to the doctor or whoever and re-break the bone so you can set it right. You may have to re-injure your emotions and, dig it up and get triggered and have all those, relive those experiences because you need to go back and set it how it should have been and then heal and then go through the therapy process of learning how to interact with the world again, learning how to walk again. And this is not any fun. It's the worst to go and relive the worst parts of your life from your perspective and dig in and really look at all the gritty details and be why is this something that's problematic for me? That is terrible. It's great, I think, that you're doing it and it has potential to have a good outcome. But while you're going through it, geez, it's literally the one thing that you don't want to do. And it's not any fun. And it can make your life much harder because now it's on your mind again. You thought you swept it under the rug or put it in the closet, but now it's on the front of your mind, and every Tuesday you're going to go to therapy and talk about it again. And that can be very dreadful or not. It could be destabilizing to the way that you act in your life because you need to be able to think in order to do stuff. And if you're constantly bogged down with traumatic ideas or emotional experiences, and that can be really tough. And what I'm telling you, or what I'm trying to explain is I fully understand that that's tough. And I'm not saying that I get exactly where you're coming from because I don't know what your life is. I'm saying that I understand that this is really hard. I'm not trying to say oh, just buck up and go to therapy and it'll be better and you just need to do it the right way. I'm encouraging you to do the work and to be introspective and look at yourself and grow and really figure out what is serving you and what's not serving you so you can be successful and be where you want to be in life. But at the same time, I'm emphasizing that this is terrible. This is something that is very difficult for everybody who tries it. Not even the people who are successful, everybody who even tries. The people who try and fail, it's terrible for them too. And it's not any fun. And it's not something you can rush. It's something that takes time. There's specific steps you got to go through. And that's it. Nobody is going to hold your hand and drag you through this process. Nobody's going to be this like magical person that comes and like sweeps you off your feet and fixes the way you think. Nobody is gonna like clean up all your emotional mental trauma for you, just like nobody is gonna like bust down your door and fix your broken leg for you. Like that doesn't happen. I mean, I guess some people, like if you're like royalty or something, you have like a bunch of doctors surrounding you all the time. But for most people, if you want to heal, you got to do it yourself. You got to take initiative. And that gets really, really hard when you have like mental injuries and emotional injuries, because those things come with stuff like depression and anxiety and all these things that really make you unmotivated to go and do stuff. But that's when it's the most important to do stuff. And I think sometimes when we feel like we're the only ones going through something, then we can feel like a victim. We can feel like we're being persecuted unfairly. And, what's the point? Why even heal? But this is part of the human experience. We get injured in lots of different ways as humans. I mean, sometimes the injury is unique, but we all get injured mentally. We all get injured emotionally. We all get injured physically. And it's up to the individual who gets injured to go through a healing process. It's not up to the person who injured me, because they're not injured. They don't need to heal because they're not hurt. It's up to the person who is hurt to heal, to lick their wounds and get back out there. Sometimes the wound is too big. Like sometimes it's not a broken leg. You got your leg chopped off. And that's totally different, because you can't just like go through therapy and like heal your leg back, because you're not a lizard. You can't grow new legs. But to the extent that you can heal, to the extent that you can make yourself mobile or make yourself more able, like maybe you get your leg chopped off or amputated and then you get like a prosthetic leg and you learn how to use your prosthetic leg, and now you got this other leg and you know how to walk with that leg. It depends on your situation. I don't know what your life is like, but if you can see a path forward, or if you can find someone to help you go and have a path forward, then take that path and take the time that it takes. It's not a waste of time to walk down that path slowly. Slow motion is better than no motion. And like I said in the earlier podcast called Anything Worth Doing is Worth Doing Poorly, if you know, like you got to do 10 things for your therapy today, but you really can only do one thing, you only have the capacity or the time or the willpower to do one thing, then do one thing, because 10% is better than 0% in terms of your therapy. And if you feel like a failure because you only did 10%, so you do nothing, that's worse. It's okay to go slow. It's okay to have bad days. If you've ever done anything worthwhile, you've had bad days. If you've been in a sport, you have bad days. If you have like a full-time job, there's been bad days that are less productive. If you have kids, there's been bad days. That doesn't mean quit. That doesn't mean you're a failure. That just means stuff that's worth it is hard sometimes. And I think healing is worth it, and it's hard sometimes. And you're going to have bad days, and you're going to fail. You're going to try and walk, and you're going to fall down right on your face, and you're not going to be able to get up because your legs don't work, because you broke your legs, and that's why you're in therapy. But you calm down. You may roll over and crawl over to a chair, sit for a while. You may take the day and then come back tomorrow. But I think there's a lot of times where we tell ourselves we can't, or we try and self-medicate. We try and figure it out on our own, and we isolate ourselves. And it really doesn't help us to grow or heal. And working with other people, going to the experts, digging into the hard stuff, doing the therapy, it's really difficult, but it's really worth it. And if you do the thing, if you do the work, if you understand and you really act on it, you can put yourself in a lot better place long term. And this is something that helps you and everybody around you. I think everybody has their own journey. I think everybody has their own timing. And this I have been directing at you, the listener, for the most of this podcast. But I do think that this is for everybody. And if you're not injured right now, you know somebody that's injured. You know somebody that's depressed, or that's laying up in the hospital injured, or that's sick, or that has a weird way of thinking. And I'm not saying you need to go down there like the Kool-Aid man and bust through their door and be like, yo, you need to heal. You need to do this and do that. I'm saying encouragement and support are very helpful. Resources are very helpful. Sometimes people have a hard time healing or doing better because they don't know any better. They don't have access to better. So sometimes gently finding ways to make people aware that there's alternatives can be very helpful. But what I want to emphasize here is that everything has its own timing. And just because you healed in this much time doesn't mean someone else can heal in the same amount of time. And it doesn't mean that you have the same injury. So be patient with people. Let them move at their own pace. Don't force them. And then also realize, this one was like kind of cringy, but like realize that not everybody wants to heal. I'm encouraging you guys to heal, but not everybody wants to do that, and not everybody can do that. Sometimes the injury is too great. Sometimes you got hit in the neck and you're paralyzed, and there's nothing you can do because you're paralyzed now. Sometimes you're just mad injured. But I would say, even if you think that might be you, do whatever you can to confirm that. Do whatever you can to really go out there and get a doctor's opinion, get a second opinion, get a third opinion. Go talk to some people and see what can be done. And if there's truly nothing that can be done, you'll get multiple answers that say nothing can be done, nothing can be done, nothing can be done. And sometimes you might have to talk to 10 different doctors, or sometimes you might have to go to 10 different therapists, because not all doctors are created equal. Not all therapists are created equal. Not all rehabilitation programs are created equal. And so you might need to try some different ones. And if you just make up something on your own and it doesn't work and then you quit, you're not doing yourself a favor. I'm not saying that everything will work out perfect, but being persistent and being diligent and believing in yourself, valuing yourself enough to say, I'm going to try and work on this. Even if it takes me 10 years, even if it takes me 20 years, I'm going to work on this. I'm not going to give up on myself. Having that mentality is very difficult to sustain for 20 years, to believe in yourself when nobody else believes in you or nobody else cares that you get healed. That's very tough. And I think this takes a lot of people out, because sometimes you have to sustain this motivation for a long time in order to get healed. And that's very difficult. But if you can do that, I think it's worth it. If you can support somebody or give them a word of encouragement, or even just listen to them sometimes, it can help them to stay as in focus or stay in their lane and keep up with their healing process. So check in with your friends, talk to your family members if you can, and try to create relationships that support each other, because that's also a part of healing. Healing involves your support systems. But this is all a lot of work. And there's no recipe that you can open up this book and say like, oh, do this, this, and this, and I'll be fine. Almost every situation is unique. And so you got to figure out what's unique about your situation and address that. But if you can take some time to look at yourself, find people who are knowledgeable in the subject of what you're dealing with, and ask them questions, get their opinion. You can do some research. You can find some resources, go talk to some doctors and stuff, and you put all that together, you come up with a plan, and then if you can follow that plan and execute it, none of this is fun. It's probably going to be expensive. It's going to probably be physically painful. It could be disorienting and confusing. You might need to end up, like if it's an emotional or mental injury, you might need to end some relationships or make some boundaries and stop hanging out with some people because they might be aggravating your injuries. You might need to change your lifestyle a little bit. And all of this is like, makes you feel like the world is ending. Like that feeling that it's like, oh, what's going to happen if I do this? Like because you're changing your lifestyle. That's your way of life, and it's changing, and that's terrifying. But if it's what you got to do, it's what you got to do. So I applaud the people that even try this. Even if you fail, I applaud the people that try, because this is like, I'm thinking this is the most difficult thing that a person can do, is to really look at themselves objectively, say what's wrong out loud, admit it, and then like try and fix it. that I think is very, very difficult, and very few people can do that. And so I applaud anybody that even tries, even if you do it badly, even if you do it 1% instead of 100%. Yo, good for you for trying, because that's like super hard. I hope you succeed. I hope you get to 10%. I hope you get to 20%. I hope you get to 50%. I hope you get fully healed. And I hope you get better. I hope you get 150%. But I also want you to know that it's a tough thing. It's a hard thing. And it's probably something you're going to have to do alone, because it's your injury and you have to deal with it. You have to take the initiative. I hope you have support, but it's your responsibility. So I hope you heal. I hope this helps a little bit, and maybe it can even just give you some vocabulary or some concepts to sit on and have some conversations with people. But whatever kind of day you're having, I hope that it's real. I hope that what you experience is what's actually happening, and that you're taking time to be yourself, to find out who you are and be that person inside of today. And I hope that whatever you got from this conversation, or this talk I've had about how healing sucks, I hope that it turns into a good conversation for you somewhere down the road. Anyways, I'll talk to you next week.